So we began last week talking about what it was like to think deeper about some things, and we're going to kind of continue that tonight, but I'll also give some very interesting updates about AI, robotics, and where we're headed with all that. Thinking deeply. Revelation 1, 7 and 8. I want you to see verse 8 before we get to verse 7. I want you to see who he is. Jesus. I am Alpha and Omega. I don't need to read anything more. That says it all. It's pretty self-explanatory. He is the beginning and the end, which is and which was and which is to come. So there's the book of Revelation, and he's connected to all past, present, future. And then he uses that title of himself, the Almighty. That's an Old Testament term for God, the Mighty One, the Almighty, and that is Jesus. But now notice in verse 7, behold, he cometh with clouds. This, of course, is a trigger for anybody in the Middle East and for Israel at that time, because Baal was the rider on the clouds god. That was how he was known. And so Jesus is claiming, not him, me. I am the one. He cometh with clouds. He doesn't just ride on the clouds. He does that, but he owns the clouds. And every eye shall see him. So we're not talking about the rapture, because the rapture happens instantly, and we'll meet him in the sky. But every eye shall see him. So we're talking about the second coming. Now, we're talking about the tribulation period and his second coming. And they also which pierced him. And we know who we're talking about there, the Jewish people. And addition to that, everybody on earth's going to see him. They who pierced him, and all kindreds of the earth shall wail because of him. Now, if we saw Jesus, if Jesus came and walked in here today, we would not wail, we would worship. We would be so overjoyed. If you recognize that was him. Yeah. But they in the world during that tribulation period time are going to wail because of him. You remember later on, it's going to talk about they're going to hide in the caves and ask the rocks to cover them. So there's basically, we've got two different kinds of people responding today to Jesus. And in that day, it's not going to be any different. Those who are saved are going to be with him, and those who are left on the earth are going to wail because of him. So I want to take us a little bit deeper and think about some things tonight. But before we get to that, we want to talk about some news. Every week, there's always new stuff coming up. Really pretty fascinating this week. Probably more than I'm going to be able to get to. But Hungary locks out foreign money influence in elections. Okay, now think about that title that I put there. Hungary, they just had a conservative elected not too long ago as president. Well, Hungary's passed a law, locked out foreign money influence in elections. Now, who do you suppose would not be happy about that? Hungary launches foreign influence investigation. U.S. State Department, CIA, and the European Union influence institutions immediately complain. Now, why in the world would our State Department complain about them having voter integrity, election integrity? We know why. So they passed a law. Hungary passed a law, developed their Sovereignty Protection Office, and they've launched an investigation. Hungary's parliament passed a law late last year and set up an authority, this organization, and now they've launched an investigation. The law, which has been criticized by the EU, the United States, and several international organizations, bans foreign financing for parties and groups running for election and carries punishments up to 3 years in prison. The law was criticized by the United States, as I've already stated. What have we complained about the Soviet Union doing for decades, coming in and overthrowing governments. Now we know that the United States has been no different. Oh, we were doing it for the sake of freedom. Okay, that was then, this is now. So I found that fascinating. And then I want to give you some background as we look about AI. It's been in the news. I shared this with you a few months ago, but this gives you some background for what we're going to look at. Inside the First Church of Artificial Intelligence. That's actually a thing. It's church. The new religion of artificial intelligence is called Way of the Future. It represents an unlikely next act for the Silicon Valley robotics wonderkind. And then there's all, I think this has all been settled. Uber and Waymo and Alphabet, which is Google, have been in a thing about autonomous vehicles. That's, I think, maybe been settled. But papers filed with the Internal Revenue Service in May named Lewandowski as the leader or dean of the new religion, as well as CEO of the nonprofit corporation formed to run it. It's church. It's a nonprofit, just like us. Well, not just like us, but as far as the IRS is concerned. So the documents state that the WOTF's activities will focus on the realization, acceptance, and worship of a Godhead based on artificial intelligence. Developed through computer software and hardware, this includes funding research to help create the divine AI itself. Okay, I shared that a few months ago, but we're going to continue on. I want us to understand just all about this AI and how it is ensconced already in our society. So back in 2011, I remember when he did this. I found it was fascinating when he said this. Steve Jobs, who's now dead, introduced Apple's new storage service called iCloud. Okay, that sounds, it's in the cloud. You realize that all that means is electronically you're connecting to a computer server somewhere physically in the world. There is no such thing as the cloud. That's not a thing. Well, it is a thing, but it's not what everybody thinks it is. It's just somebody else's server. So, and his tagline at that time, I just found this tagline fascinating. The truth is in the cloud. Now, what that came to mean was, so if I type something here on my computer or I copy something, my computer at home, my computer up in my office, my iPhone, my iPad, all of them instantly have that information. And it's all protected because it goes to the cloud and then it's on all my devices. And I'm telling you, it wasn't at the beginning. It is now absolutely fantastic. It is amazing that they were actually able to do it. But the truth is in the cloud. I think there may be demonic layers to that. I'm not sure. But the truth is in the cloud. That also means, I think, in Steve Jobs' mind, what they have in the cloud, that's what they say you have. Right? So AI, which is, that bugs me every time I hear that, artificial intelligence. It's not. So Elon Musk has been trying to tap into the brain, right? We've known about that. And the latest I heard just a month or so ago, that brain rejected it, and there was some issues and caused some real problems for the guy that they'd done that to. And one of the reasons is because, I believe, the brain is not where your identity and your spirit and soul reside. Even in the Old Testament, David talked about things happening down here. I think he probably was way more right, because this thing of identity and soul is with you, but not in your brain. It's quasi with you. I don't know how to explain it, but it's not just the cells in your brain. And that's the reason why when they try to interface with the cells in your brain, then they're going to the soul. or the spirit or the inner person. So that's a rather complicated thing. But anyway, AI, information, and robotics. Information. The CIA has been building, the NSA too, for years, what they call data farms. And by the way, uh, Ray Kurzweil, who was kind of like the granddaddy of information technology, I listened to him recently, he backed away from AI and he said, we got to get a handle on this, and we're not going to. But he said that all of this data mines that we've got all over these farms, all over, are just sucking the electricity beyond what I understood. It's part of the reason why we have problems supplying all the electricity that we want to. These data farms must be huge, and there's a lot of them. Apple's got them, Google's got them, the NSA's got them, CIA's got them, the FBI's got them. You got these data farms. Now, AI, well, if you combine AI with all these data farms and nearly unlimited data systems throughout the world, I mean, there's actually a lot there to try to take in all of the databases throughout the world that it can tap into, along with robotics. And we talked about this, I don't know, a month and a half ago or so, dead bots. This is far and away the creepiest thing that man ever thought of, dead bots. AI is capable now of watching videos of your loved one, taking all their pictures, listening and learning everything, every piece of data that they have about your loved one. And now they can reproduce that, even on a computer screen, their likeness and their mannerisms. And it doesn't take much to think about. We've got robots now that can wander around and follow us. They could make that robot, and you could dress them up in their clothes. You could have a chat bot, a dead bot, with your loved one. This is creepy off the charts. But the thing is, people who are vulnerable, who miss their loved ones so much, and they see this and it's just like them, they could be drawn into a whole new reality. And I think that's the intent. At any rate, these things are coming together for a purpose. Before I get to the purpose, we need to go a little bit deeper into this AI thing. Artificial intelligence and the church. Are you ready for AI in the church? No. It's already here. So, I'm just going to show you a couple of web pages. The future of AI, 10 global implications for the church to consider. I've been hearing things coming out of the convention and other religious entities where, especially Christianity Today, which is so liberal it's almost gone, that as pastors, we need to make our people not afraid of AI. We need to stop making them afraid of AI. They've already got a fear of it. We need to calm their fears. That already makes me not want to do that. At any rate, here are some of the things. Reformation of pastoral roles. In a lot of ways, this could be wonderful. I don't have to write sermons. I don't have to write blog posts. I don't have to put Facebook posts up. AI can do all that for me, and I can be released to do, other things. But this is coming. There are religious corporations already being built to do this for the church. We're going to look at some of it. AI generated worship services. We've already seen that happen in one of the EU countries, Germany. I don't remember where it was now. Job replacement due to AI. Hey, we don't need a music person. Why do we need to put the money out for a music person when AI on the screen can do that for us? Do all the work in the background that Judy's been doing. And there's a lot more to it than you realize. Organizing praise teams, special music, picking out the music, getting it. There's a whole lot of ducks to get in the row. Why, that would free up. We wouldn't need a music person. AI could do it all. And fortunately, they could also preach the sermon. I don't know how they bring universal income into this, but they do. So this is kind of a woke thing. AI and advertising. This is actually a pretty useful thing here. They could take all of the information about our church, all the trends based on what's going on in our community, and it could come up with the best way for us to promote ourselves to the community in all the different marketing ways. That's actually not a bad thing. And this one, you got to hear 7. This came quicker than I thought it would. AI enhanced Bible translations. Listen to this. In the realm of biblical scholarship. Now, just as a general rule, whenever you hear that, your shields need to go up. Because that's what happens in cemeteries. Biblical scholarship could be a great thing, but it never is. AI could prove to be a valuable tool for producing more accurate translations of the Bible. Leveraging AI language models and large biblical manuscript databases, scholars could create translations, now stick with it, that consider different objectives, such as word-for-word translations, sentence equivalents, and paraphrasing. AI could thus enhance the depth and breadth of biblical understanding. Now, this doesn't sound so bad yet. Number 8, building on that, synthesized unifaith religious Bible. I don't even need to tell you what that means. You already know what that means, don't you? Our Muslim brothers, our Jewish brothers are in the fold, and we're all just a part of the one big happy brotherhood of man. And they will be able to come up with a Bible translation that won't make anybody mad. But AI is just here to help you, right? So, missional marketing. It's already here. Missions, the church, marketing. 7 ways AI is transforming church marketing. Already talked about sermon creation. I wonder if I could make that bigger. Digital congregation support. While I'm preaching, you could interface with the chat bot, a Christian chat bot that would answer all your questions. My favorite would be, they're going to say, your pastor's nuts. Trusted. So this is one of their advertisements on the page. Trusted AI church marketing support. Digital campaigns, already talked about how that could be good. Blog and content creation. It could write blogs for me. It would be like having 10 of me doing stuff all the time. It probably knows me pretty well. It might come up with some mostly good stuff. But you know, one of the funny things about AI, every now and again it has what they call hallucinations. I think that's so funny. They give a human attribute, but all it is the software tripped over itself and started garbled information. Driving church growth and engagement. Again, from a marketing standpoint, it could actually be useful. What I wanted to point out for you is this is already here and it's already being pushed to churches, and they got a business model. They're probably already making money at this. Would you agree? Especially if you're a woke church. So transhumanism, we've talked about that a lot. This artificial intelligence, robotics, all kinds of tech, medicine. They're going to become vehicles, and here's the purpose and the reason why I'm presenting all this. It's going to be a vehicle one of these days for the man of sin, the Antichrist, to have God-like abilities. And I've told you this before, it really is true. AI has enhanced our lives in many ways. I'll give you just one example. This is my second set of hearing aids, and it has AI built into it. And I can tell you that these hearing aids versus the previous ones that I had aren't even in the same ballpark. These are, I'd say, 10 times better than the other. I can actually understand people. So I am a biotic man, a $6 million man already. And in many ways, it's wonderful. We've got artificial knees, and we've got technology driving our heartbeats, right? Yeah. We've already got a lot more of this tech going on in our society than we, and so we're boiling that frog 1 degree at a time is what's happening. But the man of sin, the Antichrist, he's going to, well, let's just look at it. 2 Thessalonians 2:4, we've looked at it before. It's kind of at the central focus of the rapture and what's going to happen after the rapture. Who, speaking of the Antichrist, opposeth and exalteth himself above all that is called God, or that is worshipped. So this is broader than just Christianity. This is every religion in the world. So that he, as God, sitteth in the temple. Oh, there's going to be a temple built again. So that he, as God, sitteth in the temple of God. And here's the insanity of the devil. I mean, he's a genius who is insane. He's convincing himself he's God. Much learning doth make thee mad, Satan. Yeah. So Luke 7:22, Jesus begins to talk about, well, then Jesus answering said to them, go your way and tell John what things ye have seen and heard. So John's in jail. He says, are you the guy or do we look for another? Jesus says to them, go back, tell John what things you have seen and heard. Now watch this. I'm not sure this is accidental. Jesus may have said this with a smile because he knew what was coming in our day. How that the blind see. Do you know that artificial intelligence and robotics has now enabled artificial eyeball and optic nerve? That was just 2 or 3 months ago that I saw that. It'll eventually become more mainstream and they're able to develop it. Somebody can actually see who could not see before because of AI. The lame to walk. Well, if you don't know about that, you can research that. AI and robotics is making it possible for people who are paralyzed from the waist down to be able to walk. It's wonderful for them. The lepers are cleansed, so there's medicine. We just need to trust the science, right? The deaf to hear, already there, and the dead are raised. So the Antichrist is going to do what seems to be miracles. He's going to have God-like abilities. Already there, and you don't even realize it. So if one of you falls over dead, the first thing we're going to do is thank you, Lord, for his presence in heaven. But if you're not ready yet, we'll go get the electronic device from upstairs, bring it down, shock him, and they'll come back to life. Am I stretching it? That's technology. That's actually old technology, but it will be taken to the extreme when that electronic device is connected to the internet and that AI says, Wayne's just too old and not productive anymore. We'll just not shock him. No electricity for you today.
It's okay with me.
Well, yeah. You see my point, though. Those electronic devices could be connected to the internet the same way your car is, same way your phone is. Well, he's predicting, but that's why I say he says it with a smile, because he's telling John, tell John what I'm doing right now. But the Antichrist is going to mimic that, is in our day already beginning to mimic the miracles of Jesus. Okay, so this is where we picked it up last week, talking about how you can use the Exodus, Egypt, the wilderness, the promised land, as a wonderful, amazing, and I can't believe it's an accident, that it actually mirrors our spiritual walk. So it begins, of course, in Egypt, crossing over. So we began to talk last week about how the word Hebrew, we're going to talk more about it, but the word Hebrew, literally, the first time it shows up in the Bible, Hebrew, Abraham is a Hebrew. He's one who passed over. He crossed over from the heathen over to the promised land, right? That sets the tone for what Hebrew means in the Bible. Well, that mirrors our experience as well. In order for us to get to the kingdom of heaven, we have to cross over.
Amen.
ye must be born again. We even mirror that after we get saved. We have a passing through the Red Sea experience of baptism. They were all baptized, Paul said. 1 Corinthians 10. They were all baptized in the Red Sea. So these things become a template for our spiritual walk today. And then the faith training took place in the wilderness, and I told you they were only a few days' journey from the Red Sea to the Promised Land. Just a few days. Less than a couple of weeks, if I remember right. Walking distance, and that's all they had back then. So what was that for? What happened in the wilderness wanderings? They got hungry, God fed them. They got thirsty, and God took care of them. They needed to be taught lessons. That's what that. And after we get saved, we have to learn spiritual lessons. Now the danger comes at that place of Kadesh and Barnea, where God challenged them to move on in faith to the Promised Land. But their faithlessness said, that's too radical. There's giants. We can't go there. And as I said Sunday, the way God took that, he took it personal. What they were saying was, with their activity, with their business meeting, was that God wasn't as strong and powerful as those giants. And that insulted him, made him angry. He took it personal. And so the wilderness wanderings is that place where they were supposed to learn some elementary lessons, not complicated lessons at all. Trust God. And really, that's the Christian walk. It comes down to that right there. Trust God. They did not, and consequently, what happened to them? They turned back to the wilderness, and every one of them died. See, that's the thing. As I've told you, the old black preacher I heard preaching, he said, if you don't get on God's program, all he's got to do is stand back and wait you out. If this is a template of the Christian life, and I believe that there's no accidents in the Bible, this point at Kadesh and Barnea, where they were challenged to go on deeper, but they chose to go back more shallow, let me ask you a question. Do you know anybody who allegedly got saved, just on fire in the church, and man, they were right there for everything that was going on? Now they're nowhere to be found. No church to be found. They're in the wilderness waiting to die. I'm not saying they're lost. I'm saying they chose not to walk the spiritual walk that God intended. But there are those who did at Kadesh and Barnea say the giants are big, but God is bigger, and they move on into the Promised Land. That's the deeper walk. And I'm guessing that most of you are here tonight doing a deeper Bible study. Most of our church does not care about this kind of a Bible study. Now, I'm not trying to be insulting. They don't care. They don't care about prophecy. And friends, you can't get any deeper Bible study than prophecy. And the bulk of the Bible is prophetic, and much of it has not yet happened yet. So those who have passed on into the deeper spiritual walk, when you have crisis, you know who to trust. So one generation died off because of unbelief. Another generation was raised up in the wilderness. And what did they know? They didn't know anything other than God gave them quail, God gave them water, God gave them, he provided for their every need. That's all they knew. And if they'd have had anything else, they'd have been like their forefather generation. But those who come to a simple faith are able daily to trust him simply. Yeah, and that's the purpose of the church, is we're supposed to encourage each other with our faith walk. When we have challenges, I had, just in the last couple of days, I had God's answer to prayer for something. He didn't have to do it. My life would have gone right on and been just fine without it. But James is right. You have not because you ask not. And it's not that uncommon for me to say, Lord, you don't need to do this for me, but if you can find a way to do this for me, Thank you in advance. And he will, and I pray that prayer periodically. And sometimes I begin the prayer and feel so unworthy to even ask it that I don't even ask it. And God already knows about it and often gives it to me. Yeah, there's no downside to asking and not getting. Right? So the word Hebrew, as I've already mentioned, talked about this last week, is one who has passed over. Abraham left a pagan society, so it's about leaving something behind and coming closer to God. In fact, the tabernacle was a place where one could draw closer to God. This had to have been one of the amazing things for the Hebrews in the Exodus. They were given a place where now we can come. Now, they couldn't come right up to him, but they could come to the tabernacle where they knew God was on the other side of that. And the rest of the world didn't even have that. And so they had that. But everything about the dispensation of the law runs into barriers. They had a gate. They had the tent entrance. Only the priest could go in there. And who could go behind the veil? One guy, once a year, and only after he was cleansed by the blood. So the law is about keeping people at a distance. You can only come so close. Grace is all about access.
Yep.
We can come boldly before the throne of grace and obtain the mercy that we need. Hebrews 10:1, for the law, having a shadow of good things to come, and not the very image of the things, can never with those sacrifices which they offer year by year, continually, make the comers thereunto perfect. And chapter 4, verse 14 in Hebrews, seeing then that we have a great high priest that is passed into the heavens, Jesus, the Son of God, let us hold fast our profession. For we have not a high priest which cannot be touched with the feelings of our infirmities, but was at all points tempted like as we are, yet without sin. Therefore, let us come boldly. Is every word in the Bible important?
Yes.
Because of that, because of Jesus, because of all that he went through, because of his blood, we may come boldly under the throne of grace, that we may obtain mercy and find grace to help in time of need.
Why do you think God put the word boldly in there? What do you think the reason for that is?
Let's picture it this way. Dad is in his home office, and the toddler son loves his daddy, wants his daddy's attention, loves his daddy, wants his daddy's attention. So he comes and he peeks through the crack in the door, hoping Dad will look at him. And eventually Dad does. And he says, come on in, son. And you run in. And the son jumps on his lap. And they cuddle. We have an intimate father that we can have an intimate relationship. And like you're pointing out, we don't really settle in to enjoy that like we probably should. We're afraid. And what would we be afraid of? There is therefore now no condemnation to those who are in Christ Jesus. I don't know whether we really have a frame of reference to fully comprehend that in the flesh, in this world. Well, so if that's a template of the Christian life, if you have passed over, you are a Hebrew, if you have passed over the Red Sea experience and been saved, if you have passed on over into the Promised Land, were there challenges in the Promised Land?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. They needed to continue to trust God every day, just like we do. Oh, yeah, the giant. But wow, I can't think about the giants that I don't think about 85 years old. The promised land has been taken, secured. Only the giants have run up to this mountain that had been promised to him. 85, and he says, Joshua, that's my mountain. And what did he do? He went and killed or drove out all those giants.